Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to England once again and we're going to have a look at yet another of my recent purchases from the House of Trembling Madness in York. Awesome beer shop if you can get there physically, otherwise they've got a great web shop there which the English beer tubers tell me is one of the best value ones that you're going to find. So do make sure you check them out if you're particularly interested in English craft beer. As I've said to you before, the scene down there is thriving at the moment, so it is really worth checking them out. But for this review we are going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel a good couple of times before. I think this might be review number 5 or 6 involving this brewery, and it will be about my 4th or so dedicated review to these guys, but this is a beer I have to say I am very curious about. So for this one then we are going to go down to Hartlepool, which I believe is County Durham in the northeast of England, and we're having a look at another beer from Donzoko Brewing Company, and this will be review number 6 or so involving this brewery on the channel, but yeah, 4th or so dedicated review to this brewery. But this particular beer is called the Select Pils Tettnang. It comes in at 5% ABV, and this one is part of the Select Pils series, obviously, which is where they highlight different hop varieties in different Pilsner beers. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. Hopefully it's another good beer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, I've had a couple of collaboration beers involving Donzoko, most recently the one that they did with North Brewing, the Dark Lager, and then other than that I had the Doppelbock, which was the very first beer I tried from them. Then I had the Northern Hellas, courtesy of Adam over at Mersey Beers, then the Fest beer, and now we have this one. And I do have another collaboration involving these guys as well. But yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. As you'll know if you've been watching the channel recently, I've been going through a little bit of a lager phase, and I'm glad that these styles are starting to get a little bit more attention, because I think the German, the kind of traditional German and Czech beers have been kind of neglected a little bit over the last few years in favour of the IPAs and stuff, so nice to see them getting a little bit of recognition. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. As I said, I think this is actually my first Pilsner beer that I'm having from these guys, which should be pretty cool, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it as well, and fingers crossed I can get a look at some of the other beers in this series as well when they do release them. So yeah, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Donzoko Brewing Company before, and hopefully we can add more to that list in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to quite regularly at the moment because I am enjoying a little bit of time at home in the motherland of Scotland, so we've got easy access to these English beers. We're also getting a good stream of English beers over in Sweden at the moment, which is great. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Donzoko Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes. So Donzoko Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Hartlepool in County Durham in the northeast of England, and the company is headed by Rhys Hugel, who started homebrewing back in 2014. So he was actually studying chemistry at Newcastle University, and later he went on exchange to the Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich, and it was during his time in Germany that he developed a love of the German style lager beers, and that is why he really does all of these kind of things. But he was actually going to go and study his masters, but then he decided that he wanted to do something different, and having had some success with his home brewing, he decided that he was going to start up his own company, and he did this with the help of savings and grants from both Newcastle University and Hartlepool Council, and he got this up and running properly in 2017. Originally they were brewing the wort at another brewery and then transporting it in bags to their own premises where they were doing the fermentation, but they've been gradually building up their own operations in Hartlepool over the last couple of years. Over the course of 2020, Rhys was planning to invest in his own brew house. I think that's had to be put on hold because of the whole coronavirus situation, but he was going to be adding in some staff to the brewery as well. But one thing you should note about these guys is that quite a few of their beers are brewed under contract at Gypsy Hill Brewery. down in London. So yeah, the Northern Hellas, if you do drink the Northern Hellas, the chances are that that beer has been brewed under contract at Gypsy Hill. But as of January 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 40 different kinds of beers. Originally they were producing solely German kinds of beer, but they've also got a number of pale ales, IPAs, black IPAs and things like that in there as well. I'm sure I saw one or two Belgian type beers as well, come to think of it. But yeah, the main focus of this brewery is different kinds of lager beers actually. And yeah, the Northern Hellas, for me, I was very, very impressed with that. And the Fest beer that I reviewed before was really top class as well actually. So that was the main reason why I wanted to get a hold of this one, because a lot of people were telling me this is a pretty damn good beer actually. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Donzoko Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to see more about all those different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. I'm, as I say, very, very hopeful for this one. But as you can see, the artwork on this once again is very, very nice. There you can see at the top of the can there is Donzoko Brewing Company. It's got a little bit of text on the back there, and you can also see the distinctive red D. But it says on the back here, the Select Pils series is a delicious exploration into the German hop varieties. A simple grain ball of German Pilsner malt and a decoction mash backs up a significant addition of quality hops in the whirlpool, followed by a long cold fermentation. This edition of Select Pils is a single hop with Tettnanger, direct from the hop farm in Tettnang, Germany. Intense floral and sweet herbal aromas go against the rich malt, and assertive bitterness show why this hop is a true classic. So yeah, this is quite interesting actually. The story of the Pilsner beer, basically, it was actually brewed in Pilsen, in what is now the Czech Republic, but was then the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So the Pilsner is actually a Czech style of beer, come to think of it. But the brewer, although I guess you could argue this in a few different ways, the brewer actually came from Bavaria in Germany. Wasn't a very nice man, and I think he only lasted in Pilsen for about 2 years, but the original Pilsner beer is, as the Czechs call it, Plzeňský Prastroj, but as most people know it, Pilsner Urquell. That was the original Pilsner style beer, but Pilsner of course is the German name for the city of Pilsen, so that's where, that's basically where the where this name Pils comes from. We seem to use the German name rather than the Czech name, which is quite interesting. Maybe that's just to do with the whole kind of East-West thing, if you like, following the Second World War. But yeah, Pilsner, essentially, the definition of a lager beer is a cold fermentation, which is roughly, I think it's between, 9 to about 12 degrees usually, cold fermentation. Ales, of course, tend to ferment at, 18 degrees, something like that. But yeah, the Pilsner beer basically defined by its defined by its kind of crispness in the malt base, but the Czech varieties, of course, the Czech Pilsens, are a little bit more kind of bready and slightly thicker than the German Pilsens, which tend to be a little bit more crisp and dry in my experience. Both of them can have a little bit of sweetness, of course. I think the German ones are more likely to have a bit of that biscuity sweetness though. But yeah, a lovely style of beer, and as I said, I really think these are underrated. These German lager beers and Czech lager beers are very, very underrated. But yeah, the Pilsner is a bit distinctive from the other ones because of its, it's just where it's from. It's a very regional beer, of course. But yeah, the Tettnang region is a hop growing region in Germany. It is in Baden-Württemberg, which is very close to where I studied in Germany, actually at Heidelberg. And yeah, you get some really nice stuff out of there. So the two main hop growing regions in Germany are, of course, Hallertau, which is in Bavaria, and then Tettnang, which is in Baden-Württemberg. So yeah, interesting. It's always interesting to learn a little bit more about these traditional German beers. But yeah, I guess at this stage we can get this guy out and we can get on with the tasting. Single hop lager beer, of course, single hop Pilsner, 5% ABV. This is a 500 milliliter can, a half litre, so a good German measurement. I do like that. I'm not a great fan of the 440s. I do think we should either be doing 330s or 330s or half litres. Just my opinion, of course. 330s for me for the imperial stouts, and I would say half litres for the lager beers and the IPAs. But yeah, I think this beer cost me like £5 or something like that. But it's cheaper. It's about the same price as the Swedish beer, so I'm kind of used to that. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very, very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. A 5% Tettnanger single hopped Pilsner beer, this one, from Donzoko in Hartlepool, County Durham, in the northeast of England. Let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. this should be. Very, very nice, I think. I could of course use my Pilsner Urquell tankard that I have up on the windowsill there, but I like, when I'm home in Scotland, I like using my 6 degrees north glass. The tulips of course are the kind of best all-rounders for lots of different styles. So yeah, interesting look on this beer. You can see the head, it's poured with a nice finger and a half of, it's actually quite a frothy head, although the edge of it seems to be quite bumpy for some reason, not quite sure why. But yeah, as you can see, as you would kind of expect, it's poured a lovely kind of pale golden straw colour actually. The Czech Pilsners of course tend to be a little bit more hazy than the German ones, but of course, you know, it really just depends what brewery it's from. That varies from brewery to brewery. But yeah, lovely kind of pale golden straw colour to this beer. A little bit of natural haze to it, as you can see if I stick my fingers behind the glass. You can see the head definitely looks a little bit more kind of foamy now rather than bumpy. But yeah, 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there. But I mean, overall, it does look pretty damn nice, I have to say. I like how everything goes together in this one. So yeah, it's gone together very nicely. So yeah, nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of it being a Pilsner. It's got a nice little bit of natural haze to it, and to be honest, that is kind of what you expect from Donzoko. Does it actually say, I should check this and see where this one was brewed. Maybe they've actually started brewing in Hartlepool, because it does actually say, it doesn't say anything about Gypsy Hill Brewery, so I maybe need to update those notes actually. So I'll see about doing that for the next video, because it does say on the can actually that they're brewing in Hartlepool. So yeah, maybe it's just the vault. Maybe they're still doing the Northern Hellas down there, because it's because that's probably their biggest by volume beer. Maybe the smaller things are being brewed in Hartlepool, of course. But yeah, it certainly looks very, very nice, this one, as you would expect from a Pilsner beer. So yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma then and see how we got. Nothing particularly surprising about the appearance of this one. So let's go for it. Let's go for it. That does smell very, very nice actually. So yeah, straight away with this beer, you get everything that you would expect from a nice Pilsner beer, and the German hops in this are just so distinctive. I love it, love it. So straight away with this one, when you take it in, you've got a nice kind of soft white bready character in there. It's got a little bit of crisp quality to it, which is great. So yeah, soft kind of white bready notes in there, a little bit of crispness, and you've also got a wee bit of a kind of biscuity sweetness as well, which I think is a little bit of a biscuity sweetness there, which I think is very, very nice. So yeah, I really like how this one goes together in that sense. The malt base, the thing that you look for with these Pilsner beers is authenticity, and this one really kind of just hits the spot, and that, you know, that's exactly what you would expect from Donzoko. The Northern Hellas was great, the Fest beer was awesome, so yeah, I'm not surprised that this beer is just really well executed. So yeah, but yeah, straight away with this one, lovely soft white kind of bready notes to it. You do get a wee tiny little bit of that McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing in there, but yeah, it's mainly that soft and smooth white bread sort of thing. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a wee bit of like Munich malt in this, or like a UK lager malt. It does remind me a little bit of some of the UK lager malts I've had. It's not pure, I don't think it's pure Pilsner malt that's in this, to be honest with you. It comes across, it does come across, I think there is German Pilsner malt in there, but I would be very surprised if there's not something else in there as well, unless the yeast is playing a bit of a bigger role in this one. So maybe it is a little bit more yeasty, because it does say on the can, yeah, it's a simple grain bill of just German Pilsner malt. So maybe this is going to be quite a yeasty Pilsner, actually. But some of the, as I say, some of the notes that you get with this are really quite bready, and German Pilsner malt I always remember being a little bit more kind of dry and kind of biscuity, if that makes sense, but maybe that will come out a little bit more in the flavour actually. But yeah, the bready notes you get out of this are absolutely lovely, and it does smell very, very authentic, but some of the breadiness you get out of this is definitely a little bit kind of Munich Helles-like, if that makes sense. But then again, the Czech lagers can be a little bit more bready than their German counterparts, as I've said. But yeah, the malt base on this one, there's not too much to say about it. A little bit of breadiness, as I say, soft white, kind of crisp bready notes in there. A little bit of a slightly McVitie's digestive biscuity sweetness to it. And other than that, not a lot to report, but it just smells absolutely lovely. Quite a straight shooting beer in that sense. On the hoppy side of things, a little bit of There is a little bit of kind of earthiness to this one. There's a little bit of that kind of typical German noble earthiness in there, which is good. You've got a wee bit of a herbal quality, which you could sometimes get from these German noble hops. Nice, quite bright floral aromaticity. The Czech hops, of course, the Žatec or Sats as they call it, tends to be a little bit more kind of spicy almost, whereas the German ones are quite bright in that sense. And you've got a good little bit of grassiness out of this beer too, which is great. Yeah, the aroma of this beer is really, really nice. It's just got a little bit of a grassy, kind of zesty quality on the front of the nose there, which is good. On the fruity side of things, there's a little bit of a kind of appley, peary sort of thing coming out of it, which I really like. And you've also got, you do also have just a really nice wee bit of a kind of lemony. It's got a lemony zesty kind of quality underneath as well. So grassy apples, yeah, you know, apples and pears definitely. A little bit of a kind of grassy lemony zest, maybe even a tiny little touch of like apricot or something, but nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its aroma. It's just really well executed, and that's what you want, authenticity, as I've repeated a few times. But yeah, take a bit of time to enjoy that aroma before you get stuck in. We are going to taste this beer now and see how we got on. This one is the Select Pils Tettnang, a lovely smelling beer, I have to say, so far, from Donzoko Brewing Company in Hartlepool in the northeast of England. 5% single hop Pilsner beer with German Tettnang hops in it from Baden-Württemberg. Let's get stuck in. Slange, Skål, Prost. Yeah, that is pretty damn nice, I have to say. Yeah, it's definitely got what you want from this style, absolutely. Oh, there we go. Getting a wee bit excited, there we go. So easy to down these beers, I have to say. You know, when I'm home, it's usually these kind of Pilsner beers are the ones that I usually drink myself. Everything else I usually share with my dad, but the lager beers tend to be mine. But yeah, this is lovely. It's got a good bit of that German dryness to it in the flavour. You don't pick it up so much in the aroma right enough, but in the flavour it really does have a good little bit of dryness to it. Love it. So yeah, it's really nicely done, I have to say. Yeah. Yeah, I really like how this one goes together. Again, it's very, very authentic. It's definitely one of the more, I was right in the yeastiness, I think. There is quite a bit of the yeast showing its head in this one, because it's definitely got a bit more of that. The malty side of this beer is a little bit more kind of Czech in that sense. It definitely shows a little bit more breadiness, but the actual malty side of it is a little bit more German leading. So this one is a little bit of a nice hybrid in that sense, to be honest with you. It's got the qualities of both for me. But as a Pilsner beer, generally speaking, this is really nicely done. So once again, thumbs up to Donzoko Brewing Company for this one. It's a great beer, this one. I really hope I can try the next ones in the series. If they're going to do a Hallertau and other things, it'd be cool to see them do one with like Mandarina Bavaria and, you know, Hallertau Blanc and things like that as well. It'd be cool to see them kind of extend the series and do it with some of the Slovenian hops and some of the Czech hops. You've even got Polish hops that are quite noble in character. That would be really interesting. Doing it with some English hops, you know, using this German base with English hops could be quite an interesting exercise for them as well. But yeah, it's a great beer, this one. I like it. Yeah, awesome. So, where to start with this beer then? Straight away in the middle of your palate you can feel that nice kind of soft white breadiness there. That just blankets the middle third of your palate, and it's interesting because as you go towards that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, that's when you start to get some of the real Pilsner malt dryness out of this beer. That's what I'm really getting out of this one, and that kind of sits there. The dryness kind of builds and builds as you go further into the aftertaste, and you can actually feel it. It does get a little bit more bready again as you push into that back third of the palate, and you can feel that the breadiness just thickens up a little bit, but then at the very back of the tongue again, it really is quite kind of crisp and dry, come to think of it. So yeah, that's a really interesting point to make about this beer for sure. So yeah, the malty and yeasty side of this beer I think goes together very well. I think the yeast is showing its head a little bit more on that back third of the palate, because you can definitely feel that thickness and slight smoothness to it. But then yeah, as you move further forward, you can feel, as you reach that border region with the middle third of your palate, the thickness drops away. You get all that kind of dryness, if you like, from the Pilsner malt in the beer, and then as you move, you can feel that the beer is distinctively lighter in its malt base as you move further forward. But in the very centre of your palate, you start to get a wee touch of a kind of McVitie's digestive type biscuity sweetness. That, of course, is the booziness in the beer. That's the alcohol that's giving you that little bit of sweetness in there. Although in fairness, the malt, if it's German Pilsner malt, it will have a slightly, pardon me, sort of sweet edge to it, if you like. But yeah, you can feel as you move towards the front third of your palate, that border region with the kind of front third there is a little bit of dryness comes out of the beer there as well, which is quite interesting. So yeah, there's some really interesting and quirky things going on with this beer actually. I like this one for sure. Yeah, this one I think is I think goes together really nicely in that sense too. Yeah, it's just a beautifully executed beer, I have to say. It is a really nicely executed beer, this one for sure. The malt base is done really nicely. It is one of the more yeasty type pilsners that I've come across before, and I would say that in a sense, it does have a wee bit more breadiness to it than you would expect maybe from a German Pilsner, so you could argue in a sense that this beer has a little bit of German Munich Helles character to it, but it's also got a little bit more of a Czech Pilsen type quality as well. But I mean, you're going to get things like this when you have these styles of beers not brewed in either Czech or Germany. You're going to get elements of both things coming in, and of course it's a different interpretation of the style even within these two countries, within Czech and Germany. The interpretation of these beers changes quite dramatically from brewer to brewer, so it's not unheard of, absolutely not unheard of. But I think this is a really solid beer from the malty perspective, so thumbs up to them once again, as I said. On the hoppy side of things, if you go towards the back corners of the palate there, you do get a wee bit of that typical earthiness that you would expect of the Tettnang, but then as you move further forward, you get a wee tiny bit of herbal quality. Then you do get quite a deep floral aromaticity coming out of this beer as well, and it does get just a wee touch spicy as you move further and further forward. And then on the front corners of the palate, you've got a really nice, just slightly more spicy floral aromaticity to the beer as well, which I very, very much like. So yeah, everything goes together in this beer really nicely in that sense. So yeah, the hoppy side of the beer is nice too. Around the front curve of the palate, you get a little bit of that lighter grassiness, a wee touch of a zest to it, and I think it just works very, very well actually. So yeah, it's pretty damn nice. It's pretty damn nice, I have to say. So thumbs up to Donzoko again. I'm very impressed with these. I love these Donzoko lager beers. These guys are very well respected because of it. So yeah, I just wish they were a bit more accessible to me over in Sweden. But what can you do? What can you do? Just got to stock up when I come here. But yeah, fruity side of things is quite nice as well actually. So yeah, as I always say, on that front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So if you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a wee bit of a kind of stronger sort of lemony, zesty kind of quality in there. You can just feel that citrus at the back of the palate there, but as you move further forward, it kind of mellows out a wee bit. You might get a wee hint of like a very slightly apricot-y flavour or something like that in there, but then you'll get a lot of peary and kind of apple-y type esters in there, and as you reach the kind of front part of that palate there, right almost on the tip of the tongue, you get a bit more of that kind of lemony, zesty quality coming out of the beer. So it's typical elements that you would expect of the Tettnang hop coming out in this one. And in that border region between middle third and front third of your palate, it's just got a wee bit more kind of dryness as well, which I think is quite nice. So I have to say, I really like how this goes together in that sense. So thumbs up to as I say, thumbs up to Donzoko Brewing Company for how this beer has turned out. So yeah, I really do like how this goes together in that sense. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I have to say it is pretty nicely done from its flavour profile. You will find underneath the beer as well, underneath that front third of your palate, you get one or two little of you get a little bit of the breadiness in there, but you can get a few of the kind of drier elements from that Pilsner malt pushing their way out as well. But yeah, it's just a very nicely done beer, I have to say. So I guess we can leave it at that for the flavour profile. It's awesome. It's really nice. There is a wee bit more wetness to the fruit in this as well, I should point out. But yeah, let's focus on the mouthfeel of this one then. Let's focus on that. So yeah, mouthfeel wise, I would say that this beer, you know, it's fairly light bodied, but you would expect that of a Pilsner. The carbonation does have a good level of crispness to it, and overall the mouthfeel, a little bit dry, but a little bit smooth, and just a tiny touch sweet as well, but a very easy beer to drink, this one. Absolutely. The malt base, like I say, has a balance between smoothness, sweetness and dryness. It's got a little bit of everything. It does get a bit drier the further you go into the aftertaste. There's a little bit of bitterness to this beer. I would think this one would be 25 or 30 IBUs. It could even be more than that. So it does have a wee bit of bitterness to it, which I do like. And then the fruits for me are actually quite wet in this one. They've got a wee bit of zest to them, but they're also a little bit wet in fairness. But yeah, it's a really interesting beer, this one. Definitely one of the more yeasty leaning Pilsners, I would say. So that gives it a little bit of a kind of Czech Pilsen quality in a sense, but the malty side of the beer leans towards the German side of things in a sense, because of the dryness. And then the hops are distinctly kind of German as well. The Hallertau, the Tettnang hops are quite a bit brighter, I think, than the Sats. The Sats is more spicy in my mind. But yeah, it's a really interesting one. This it ticks all the boxes for authenticity. As I say, a bit of a hybrid between. You could argue in one sense it's got a bit of Munich Helles quality to it, Munich Helles, but then it's also got a little bit of the kind of the Czech Pilsen style to it, or maybe you could argue as well like a Czech Svetli, which is the Czech equivalent of the German Helles as well. So yeah, quite an interesting one for sure. So yeah, I've really enjoyed this. Let's leave it there for this. I don't think there's much more to say on this beer other than the fact that it's very nicely done. So yeah, this one was the Select Pils Tettnang 5% Pilsner beer from Donzoko Brewing Company in Hartlepool in the northeast of England. I do believe this one was actually brewed at their own brewery, so I'll need to check that and see if they've got their own brew kit and things and update the notes for the next video. But it was a beautiful beer, this one, and I definitely look forward to trying more from these guys in the fairly near future. But this will probably be the last one you'll see from these guys for a little bit, unless I can find some other way to get a hold of them. So yeah, awesome beer this, and if you're into your German lager beers, Donzoko Brewing are one you want to check out. I've heard of Utopian and Braybrook as well in England. They're doing some good stuff if you like your lager beers. West in Scotland are doing some great beers as well in that sense. The St Mungo's Lager is very nicely done. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Donzoko Brewing Company. Hopefully we can review more from this Select Pils series in the future. A Hallertau one, a Sats one would be interesting as well. But in the meantime, this one was the Select Pils Tettnang 5% ABV from Donzoko in Hartlepool. Beautiful beer this, and one that I highly recommend you try, especially if you're interested in these traditional German style beers. Thanks again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Donzoko Brewing, do check out the House of Trembling Madness in York as well, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Slàinte, skål, cheers, catch you guys later.